The soldiers of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Scalіa cleared the Pokrovsk City Council building in Donetsk region of Russian occupiers and returned the Ukrainian flag to it. The military reported that the combat operation was divided into several stages. First, they established a logistical route, and then 2 assault brigades carried out the combat mission. The soldiers refuted all statements by Russian propaganda about the capture of the city and emphasized that Pokrovsk remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Meanwhile, the enemy spread information. In
recent times, the enemy has been spreading information that Pokrovsk is completely under their control, as well as claims that they have raised their rag, so to speak, their flag, over the city council in the settlement of Pokrovsk. But we have refuted this information. Since the beginning of the day, 205 combat clashes have been recorded on the front line. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers are not only holding the defense but are also actively carrying out a number of counterattacks against enemy positions. The report will soon provide further details about the special operations being conducted by the Ukrainian Defense Forces, including the planning and execution of these missions. Additionally, the overall situation on the front line, such as recent developments, tactical maneuvers, and the current status of both Ukrainian and opposing forces will be discussed. All of this important information is coming up in the following report, which aims to give viewers a clearer understanding of the ongoing conflict and the efforts being made by Ukraine's military to defend its territory. 58 enemy infantry shelters in the city and its surroundings have been destroyed or damaged. The Dobropilya operation is also ongoing. Over the past day, Ukrainian assault units have advanced nearly a kilometer in certain directions. Measures are being taken to block the enemy, who is trying to infiltrate and amass forces in Pokrovsk. Active countermeasures are being taken against attempts by groups of Russian infantry to gain a foothold. In Pokrovsk, Ukrainian defense forces are conducting strike and search operations. In particular, assault units of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment have been deployed, along with operators from unmanned systems forces, groups from Special Operations Forces, the National Guard, and the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, as well as reinforced military units holding the city's defense. This is according to a statement from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Just in the Pokrovsk direction, since the beginning of the day, Ukrainian soldiers have repelled nearly half of all Russian attacks recorded on the front. The General Staff notes that the armed forces of Ukraine are steadfastly holding back the enemy's onslaught.
of the enemy, as we have discussed. As we can see, there are significant tactical successes by the Ukrainian Defense Forces, which in fact put an end to the hysteria in Russian media about the supposedly catastrophic situation of Ukraine's defense forces in the Pokrovsk direction.
There has also been an increase in the number of Russian assaults in the Kostiantynivka, Oleksandrivka, and Lyman directions. And on the Kupiansk bridgehead, according to Ukrainian soldiers, Russian occupiers are trying to cross the Oskil River. But UAV operators are keeping the situation under control here, destroying all enemy boats and leaving the Russian occupiers not the slightest chance to cross to the right bank. Analyzing the situation in the Kupiansk direction, military experts state that the Ukrainian armed forces are stabilizing the situation there.
Our defense forces are acting very pragmatically on this section of the front, not only using their resources to eliminate Russian assault troops infiltrated into the Kupiansk area, but also carrying out operations aimed at their destruction. They are also targeting pontoon crossings over the Oskil River, north of Kupiansk, and conducting operations to destroy key logistical routes that run along not only the eastern but also the western bank of this river. And in principle, I believe that this activity is gradually yielding results.
Ukrainian border guards deliberately blew up the Russian long-range surveillance system Murom-M in the Vovchansk direction. According to Ukrainian soldiers, along with the system, UAV operators and artillerymen also destroyed vehicles, communication systems, and enemy drone launch positions. In addition, over the past day, 3 Russian tanks, 3 armored combat vehicles, 24 artillery systems, and 70 vehicles were destroyed at the front, and Ukraine's defense forces eliminated another 900 Russian occupiers. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia's total combat losses since the start of the full-scale war have already exceeded 1,145,500 soldiers. Latvia will deliver another 21 Patria armored personnel carriers to Ukraine. This was reported by the country's Ministry of Defense. According to the press service of the ministry, on Thursday at the Adazi military base, more than 24 pieces of Latvian-made military equipment will be handed over to Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Denis Shmyhal. He is currently on a visit to Riga. The agenda for the talks includes issues of cooperation between the countries in the field of defense. Denis Shmyhal arrived in Latvia from Norway, which he visited on a 2-day trip. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense held a series of meetings with his counterparts from Finland, the Netherlands, Estonia, and Denmark. They discussed prospects for joint production of unmanned aerial vehicles, in particular interceptor drones, as well as strengthening Ukraine's air defense, working on the confiscation of Russian assets, and supporting the Ukrainian army.
During the meeting with Estonian Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur, he expressed gratitude for Estonia's participation in Pearl and for the proposal to allocate €3 million for the purchase and support of Starlink satellite communication systems. Ukraine is also ready to participate in the implementation of projects within the framework of SAFE, which will contribute to the mutual development of our defense industrial complexes. Together with Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen, we noted the success of the Danish model for financing the Ukrainian armed forces. This year, under this model, €1.2 billion have already been allocated. By the end of the year, it is planned to attract more than €500 million additionally. Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Facebook.
Ukraine has joined the defense alliance of the Joint Expeditionary Force. This coalition includes 10 northern European countries, and it was established by the United Kingdom 10 years ago. I would like to note that Ukraine has become the first country that is not a member of the Union but has received the status of an enhanced partner. Ukrainian Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal called this a historic event and assured that Kiev will strengthen the alliance as it will be able to share its experience in countering hybrid aggression, using air defense systems, employing drones, and conducting long-range strikes. In return, Ukraine expects its partners to provide access to European technologies and production facilities on the basis of which joint manufacturing can be established, Shmyhal added. The night leading into Wednesday was restless in Russia. Drones attacked 2 oil refining stations in the Yaroslavl region. Local authorities claim that there were allegedly no casualties and the consequences of the strikes have been contained. In addition, according to Reuters, after the drone strikes, the Russian Black Sea port of Tuapse suspended fuel exports. And the Topkinsky oil refinery, controlled by Rosneft, stopped processing crude oil due to damage to the port infrastructure. All vessels that were docked during the attack were anchored in the port's waters. Protesters in India, whose relatives were deceitfully recruited into the ranks of the Russian army, are demanding an immediate response from the authorities and the return of their loved ones home. According to the demonstrators, the men had gone to Russia for study or work, but were forcibly sent to the front lines. More details in the report by Yulia Granovskaya.
Relatives of Indian citizens recruited by Russia are demanding the return of their loved ones home, reports the Ukrainian Center for Strategic Communications. Protest participants say that some of the Indians illegally mobilized into the Russian army are missing or have died. It is known that at least 12 have died and 16 Indian citizens are listed as missing.
The families have received neither the bodies nor any compensation. This is yet another piece of evidence showing how Russia uses foreigners as cannon fodder while concealing the true scale of its losses, reports the Center for Strategic Communications under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine on Telegram.
For the first time since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in October 2025, a citizen of India has been captured by Ukraine's defense forces. 22-year-old Majoti Sahil Muhammad Hussain voluntarily surrendered to servicemen of the 63rd Separate Mechanized Brigade Steel Lions. Ajidi. The foreigner says he came to Russia to study at a medical university but was arrested and sentenced to 7 years in prison. The alleged reason was possession of prohibited substances. Later, in a move typical for the Russian Federation, the man was offered the chance to go to the front instead of serving time in prison.
They told us there was a 1-year contract that I would serve for 1 year and then, well, they would let me go home. Some said they give 100,000, some said 500,000, some said 1.5 million. I didn't get anything. Eat it quickly. In the last month, in September, I was at the training ground there, and I was there for 16 days just holding out, shooting once, twice, that's it.
The Indian spent only 16 days in training, after which he was assigned to the assault troops. After covering just 3 kilometers and digging a dugout, Majodi said he couldn't go any further.
The commander said, "It's not that I don't want to, but right now I'm really exhausted. My legs hurt, my heart hurts." That's how it was, Commander, but we had a conflict. He said, "Take his radio away," and I let him have it. I heard it myself. It's fine. He took the radio, then I ran away. 2 or 3 kilometers away is your dugout. Well, a Ukrainian dugout.
Majodi made it to the dugout of the medical company of the 63rd Separate Mechanized Brigade's Steel Lions. He says he doesn't want to return to Russia. He is not the first to be captured in the USSR and asked not to be sent back to the Russian Federation. For example, on October 30th, during fighting near Vovchansk, soldiers of the 120th Separate Brigade of the Territorial Defense Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces captured 25-year-old Iraqi citizen Alimari Kamal Nabil Khalaf.
I came to Russia on a tourist visa to work in a restaurant. Then the police detained me because I didn't have a work visa. They took me to the station and forced me to sign a contract. I was scared and didn't want to do it. But then they threatened me, saying that if I didn't, they would put me in prison for 20 years.
The Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners reports that there are more than 100 citizens from 32 countries in Ukrainian captivity, not counting Russians. Most of the prisoners are citizens of Central Asian countries. Foreigners end up in the Russian army through a similar scenario. They come to Russia to study, travel, or look for work. Later, they run into legal problems and in order to avoid prison, agree to go to the front. They are promised good salaries, limited service time, and a position in the rear. In reality, they simply become cannon fodder. According to Ukrainian intelligence, Moscow is now actively recruiting citizens of Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq into the ranks of the Russian army.
We are recording active operations by Russian special services in Afghanistan. Former Afghan military personnel, special forces, and intelligence officers are being recruited to fight in the war against Ukraine. Recruitment is facilitated by the decision announced in March 2025 by the United States to end the temporary protection program for Afghan citizens and begin deporting Afghan refugees from Iran. Ole Alexandrov, an officer of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, in an interview with Ukrinform. According
to intelligence, about 1,500 Iraqi citizens are fighting in the Russian army. In African and Middle Eastern countries, particularly Ethiopia and Sudan, Russian diplomatic missions are involved in recruiting mercenaries, providing consular support to facilitate their entry into Russia. Putin has no other option but to recruit foreigners. This is the only way the Russian dictator can ease tensions within Russian society and make up for the massive losses at the front. Experts summarize. Yulia Agranovskaya for Freedom TV channel.
It's not the tower that's collapsing, but Russia's reputation. This is how the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, responded to Russians mocking the tragedy in Rome. He thanked Italy for its firm stance towards the Russian Federation as well as for its assistance to Ukraine. Yermak expressed his condolences to the family of the deceased and wished a speedy recovery to all those injured as a result of the collapse of part of the Conti Tower in the Italian capital.
When the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry laughs at the tragedy in Rome, it is not the tower that collapses, but the last remnants of Russia's reputation. More precisely, the mask simply falls off. Every vulgar attack against civilization is yet another act of self-exposure. No Potemkin village can cover up such baseness, and no fake story can overshadow the truth. Russia poisons the world with hatred and contempt. Andriy Yermak, head of the office of the President of Ukraine, on the social network X.
Let me remind you, Maria Zakharova mocked the collapse of the tower in Rome, cynically claiming that because of Italy's military support for Ukraine, the whole country would fall apart. The Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded sharply to the Russian woman's remarks, calling them dirty and alarming, and demanded an official apology from Moscow. The head of the ministry, Antonio Tajani, stated that such insults will only strengthen Rome's support for Kiev, and emphasized that Italy stands with those who are fighting against aggression. Norway is upgrading its border with Russia amid increased threats from the Kremlin. This was reported by the country's police. Oslo will use new observation towers, alternative sensors for detection and surveillance, as well as drones. About 16.5 million euros will be spent on strengthening the borders. Larisa Petruk will tell you more about how Europe is responding to threats coming from Russia.
Unknown drones have once again appeared over European capitals. In Belgium, near the Kleine Brogel Air Base, drones were spotted on the evening of Tuesday, November 4th. According to local residents, there were 6 UAVs in the air. The federal police dispatched a helicopter to search, but the drones were not found. Air traffic at Brussels airport was suspended for 2 hours for safety reasons, after which flights resumed.
I am Ukrainian, and I am very concerned that right now, in the very heart of Europe, we are seeing drones appear out of nowhere, and we have no means to prevent this or to fight it.
I stayed here at the airport until 2:30 in the morning. We can't even collect our luggage. We went to the hotel without our suitcases. We don't have any toiletries, nothing except the clothes we were wearing last night.
Belgium's National Security Council will hold an emergency meeting due to the drone incidents, the country's Minister of Internal Affairs and Security announced. On the morning of November 5th, Vilnius Airport also suspended operations due to the appearance of an unidentified drone. For safety reasons, the administration delayed flights for just over half an hour. Previously, unidentified drones had been spotted over military facilities in other European countries: Germany, Norway, Sweden, France, Romania, Spain, and Denmark.
Right now, Europe is experiencing not only hybrid attacks, but also hybrid warfare. I think that, of course, we should focus on cyber attacks and the risk of sabotage, as well as on countering drones. And that's why it's good that we've held talks with the European Union about creating a kind of drone wall, which of course can be used especially when it comes to hybrid warfare.
Europe is increasingly responding to threats from the Kremlin with preventive measures, thereby strengthening its own defense capabilities. One example is the project for a plant by the German conglomerate Rheinmetall, which will be built in Lithuania by the second half of 2026. There, they will produce German and American 155mm caliber ammunition.
For Lithuania, this is a modern plant for the production of artillery ammunition. The largest investment in the defense sector in the country's history is not just an industrial project. This is a strategic move aimed at creating a deterrent factor as a prerequisite for peace. The war in Ukraine highlights the importance of artillery ammunition. Despite the massive increase in the use of drones, 155mm ammunition remains the main consumable in a war of attrition and a factor that deters Russia's aggressive warfare. Increasing production capacity, especially for ammunition manufacturing, is necessary for our security and therefore is of vital importance to all NATO partners.
Russian hybrid attacks, among other things, complicate doing business. This aspect is highlighted by the publication Politico. Hackers closely linked to the Kremlin have been attacking the EU's cyberspace for years, targeting everything from shopping malls and airports to logistics companies, causing significant financial damage to businesses and insurance firms. Over
the past decades, Russian hackers connected to the state have attacked all sorts of European municipalities, government institutions, and businesses. There have been arson attacks, including on one of Poland's largest shopping centers, which, according to the Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, was ordered by Russian special services. Bomb parcels have been delivered. There has been a rapidly growing drone activity around European defense manufacturing facilities. There has also been a series of suspicious incidents resulting in damage to or severing of undersea cables and even a pipeline, according to Politico.
Novaya Gazeta Europe has calculated that in the past 3 months, there have been at least 74 drone-related aerial incidents in Europe in which Russia is suspected. At the same time, there is still no official confirmation of the Federation's involvement in most of these incidents. As a result of these provocations, nearly 20 countries have been affected.